Have you ever heard of someone who was basically the it boy of his entire city? A guy so stylish, so pampered, that people could literally smell his expensive perfume coming down the street long before they ever saw him? Well, that's where we start the incredible story of Mus'ab ibn Umair.
In his early life, Mus'ab was the absolute definition of luxury. I mean, we're talking about a lifestyle so over the top that a single piece of clothing he wore could cost more than feeding an entire tribe of people. He wasn't just following trends, he was the trend in Mecca.
And yet, fast forward just a few years, and this very same man is lying on a battlefield. His friends, his brothers in faith, can't even find a piece of cloth that's big enough to cover his whole body. Just think about that contrast for a second. From unbelievable wealth to the ultimate simple humility.
So, this is the real question at the heart of his story, isn't it? What on earth could make someone trade everything you can see and touch, all the money, the fame, the comfort, for an idea, for a belief in something that at the time was completely unseen?
To really understand the scale of his sacrifice, we have to first understand what he was given up. So let's dive into the life of the one they called the Prince of Mecca.
Mus'ab wasn't just rich, he was absolutely adored, almost obsessively by his parents. His mother Kunas was this incredibly powerful and wealthy woman, and she just showered him with anything and everything he could ever want. He was the guy everyone else wanted to be. His hairstyle, his clothes, everyone copied him. He basically never ever heard the word no.
And to put his wealth into perspective, check this out. 200 silver dirhams for just one piece of clothing. That was a mind-blowing amount of money back then. He wore these special sandals imported from Hadramaut. Think of them as the most exclusive, high-end designer brand you can imagine today. This wasn't just about being comfortable. This was a statement. It was about showing everyone he was on a completely different level.
So on the outside, his life looked absolutely perfect. He had the money, the fame, the looks, total adoration. But you know, deep down, underneath all that silk and perfume, there was this growing feeling of emptiness, something that all the money in Mecca just couldn't fix.
And this is where the story takes a sharp turn. He started hearing these whispers around Mecca, talk of a new message, a new prophet. And this curiosity pulled Mus'ab towards a secret meeting place that would change the entire course of his life, Dar al-Arqam.
Dar al-Arqam, you gotta understand, this was the secret hub of the early Muslim community. It was a huge risk to even go there, but Mus'ab slipped in one night, away from all the prying eyes, and for the first time, he sat and listened to the Prophet Muhammad recite the words of the Quran. And this wasn't like the poetry he was used to hearing. This message spoke directly to his soul. The stories say that as he listened, it was like everything just clicked into place for him. Right there, in that room, he made the most profound and also the most dangerous decision of his entire life. He declared his faith, and he absolutely knew what it was going to cost him.
And yeah, that bill came due fast. He had just gained this incredible new world of faith, but he was about to lose the entire material world he'd ever known. And it all came down to a confrontation with the one person who had given him everything.
So, when his mother, Kunas, found out he had converted, oh, she was furious. She actually had him locked up in their own house, trying to break him. She finally gave him a clear ultimatum. It's either this new religion or it's me. It's the faith or the fortune. And his response? It was just as clear. He didn't just say no, he actually invited her to join him.
And with those words, that was it. The bond was shattered. She cut him off completely, disowned him, stripped him of every last bit of his wealth and privilege. She put the choice to him, and he didn't even hesitate.
So he walked out of that palace, that life of unimaginable luxury, with nothing. Literally just the tattered clothes on his back. He had officially traded the life of a prince for the life of a poor believer, and he would eventually join the other Muslims migrating to Abyssinia for safety before making his way back to Mecca.
But his story was really just getting started. The Prophet saw something special in Mus'ab, not just devotion, but a real gift for leadership. So he gave him a mission that seemed, well, it seemed pretty much impossible. He told him to go to the city of Yathrib, which we now know as Medina, and prepare the entire city for the Muslims' arrival. He was about to become Islam's very first ambassador.
And his approach there was just a masterclass in diplomacy. I mean, check this out. A furious tribal leader, a guy named Usaid ibn Hudayr, comes at him with a spear, ready to kill him. And what does Mus'ab do? He doesn't fight, he doesn't argue, he just smiles calmly and makes him this really intelligent offer. He says, why don't you just sit and listen for a moment? If you like what you hear, great. If not, I'll leave. It was brilliant, totally disarming and respectful.
The effect was instant. After Musab recited some verses of the Quran, Usaid's whole expression, his whole demeanor just changed. The person telling the story says you could literally see the Islam on his face before he even said a word. Through his incredible character, Musab didn't just win an argument, he won over the leaders of Medina, and before long, the whole city was ready to welcome the Muslim.
Years later, his journey would come to its final and most heroic chapter. During the Battle of Uhud, a really critical moment for the young Muslim community, Musab was given the most vital job on the entire battlefield. He was the standard bearer.
In the chaos of that battle, the enemy made him a prime target. A horseman charged and cut off his right arm, but he just grabbed the banner with his left. Then his left arm was cut, so he pinned the banner to his chest with the stumps of his arms, refusing to let it fall. It was only when a final spear pierced his chest that he fell. And only then did the banner fall.
And this brings us right back to where we started. After the fighting was over, the Prophet stood over his body, weeping. They went to find a shroud for him, but all they could find was his own short cloak. And when they used it to cover his head, his feet were bare. When they covered his feet, his head was exposed. The man who once owned the finest clothes in Arabia now didn't have enough to cover himself. What a final, powerful symbol of his journey.
This quote, it's from another one of the companions who, later in life, also became incredibly wealthy. And years after Musab's death, he was sitting down to a huge, lavish meal, and he just started to cry, remembering Musab. He was afraid that his own comfort, his wealth in this world, might mean that his reward in the next life would be less. Musab's sacrifice became the gold standard for devotion.
You know, a story like Musab's really forces you to look inside yourself. Here's a man who literally held the entire world in his hands, and he just let it all go for what he held in his heart. And so it leaves us with a pretty big question. What is it that you cling to? What comfort, what status, what thing are you afraid to let go of for something that might be even greater?